What's good, y'all? I'm Jerry, about to check out why The Rock became the final boss. This video is about wrestling real. All explanations to the side, The Rock coming back and creating this final boss character has been an incredible breath-freshening type of storyline where he's pretty much taken over the whole storyline between Roman and Cody and made it even exciting by inserting himself into the storyline, into the mix, and them having a tag team match on night 1 of WrestleMania, and that Rock actually being in great shape, being in wrestling shape, in ring shape, and definitely delivering on all promises. I think people kind of doubted The Rock not being back in in ring shape, but he definitely exceeded expectations of night 1 and delivered one of the best storylines of this year so far. The final boss character is definitely one of The Rock's best characters since the Hollywood Rock character back in 2003. So we about to see why The Rock became the final boss, and whatever this explanation is, I don't care. I love the final boss character. I love The Rock. I've been a fan of The Rock since I was a younger kid. And let's hop into this video. Let's go.
Who would have thought that we'd see The Rock turning heel again? Not many big superstars are willing to take such a risk. But one of the unique things about The Rock is that he manages to make even the role of an arsehole work in his favor. He wouldn't be the household name he is.
And I was there that night he did the Rock concert this year, back in March.
The man came out cussing everyone, and yet we couldn't bring ourselves to hate him. Fast forward to the modern day, The Rock had become a bit too familiar, and his promos just didn't hit the same. After backlash to his planned headline at WrestleMania, he evolved, transforming himself into the final boss. In this video, we'll take a look at how The Rock turned heel and how he's made it work perfectly to make WrestleMania 40 one to remember. The Rock returned on the New Year's Day edition of Monday Night Raw and hinted at taking Roman's seat at the head of the table.
And by him being part of the board, as a board member now, he's definitely back full time. I think he definitely got the wrestling bug again.
Behind the scenes, the plan of action after The Rock's return was for him to be pushed into the main event with Roman and Cody facing off with Seth Rollins.
Absolutely.
Cody's chances of facing Roman became a pipe dream. After winning the Royal Rumble, he thought the path was clear for him to win the undisputed title. But after being appointed as a board member of TKO, The Rock made his influence felt by Cody taking a U-turn. Instead of facing Roman, he was stuck choosing his opponent. It was obvious there was some backstage shenanigans going on. He pointed at Roman after winning the Rumble, and now he's entertaining Seth. It just seemed like they were making it up as they went along. Ever since Reigns labelled himself the Tribal Chief, a match against The Rock was always speculated, but it just wasn't the right time. It just made sense for Cody to take the spotlight on this occasion. The Rock was already being criticised and turned heel in the eyes of the fans way before it actually happened. Once Cody made his mind up, he went over to SmackDown to confront Roman, but it didn't go down how he thought it would. He challenged Reigns but announced it wouldn't be at WrestleMania.
Hey, them Jordans hard as hell.
Advice from somebody
Fire Reds
Roman knows pretty well, and laid the carpet out for The Rock. He entered the ring and upstaged Cody, leaving him with Reigns to have a stare down in the middle of the ring. It was obvious he'd abused his power and inserted himself into the main event against Roman Reigns, and the fans were not happy at all. It was announced that there'd be a WrestleMania kickoff press conference featuring The Rock and Reigns to officially announce their match, and fans kicked off, making #WeWantCody trend all week. The majority of the fan base didn't want the match to happen at WrestleMania 40. Fair enough, they wanted it to happen somewhere down the road, but they didn't want it this time, and it all seemed forced, and it seemed like a repeat of the Daniel Bryan storyline at WrestleMania 30. When the press conference kicked off, The Rock looked different, dressed in all black and a chain around his neck. He took us on a history lesson with his family tree. It wasn't going well, and after announcing he would be headlining with Reigns, things went downhill.
That's when Cody came out,
forcing it on us and made it clear it was the match we were getting whether we liked it or not. Adding fuel to the fire, before the presser he appeared on the Pat McAfee show and labelled Cody's supporters Cody Crybabies. He was planting the seeds for what was about to come. Cody had seen enough and came out explaining it in the best possible way. It was BS. He continued by once again challenging Roman and finished by telling them if their grandfathers were here, they'd be ashamed. The Rock's expression changed and made his feelings heard by slapping the taste out of his mouth. Nobody saw it coming,
solidifying his heel turn right there.
Wrestling broke the fourth wall. It was complete chaos, and it became more real when The Rock interrupted Triple H's interview backstage, ordering him to sort it out or else the Bloodline would do it for him. After shocking the world, The Rock was introduced as the latest member of the Bloodline, coming out on SmackDown with his signature Versace vest, chain around his neck and sunglasses. It was a side we hadn't seen in a long time. It was time for the heels backstage to take notes, because he cut his first heel promo in years. He had everyone in the palm of his hands and announced they'd set a record, with the crowd cheering, but he shut them down instantly by telling them it was a record for being the biggest gathering of trailer park trash he'd ever seen. After all these years, he still had it. Very few people could get a positive reaction. After cussing out everyone in attendance, he knows exactly how it's done. He even offered to slap the herpes off a guy's lips. He could have continued being an ordinary heel, but he was all in at this point, taking to Instagram and bringing more eyes onto the business. He showed a darker side, talking directly to Cody and threatening he was going to
those Instagram videos are so good.
Event away from him. Nothing was the same after this point, and he continued to adapt, fine-tuning his heel gimmick as we approach WrestleMania. He challenged Cody and Seth in a tag match with him and Roman at WrestleMania, with the added stipulation, if Rhodes wins, then at night 2 he would be free of the Bloodline, but if he loses, it would be Bloodline rules. Despite being the main character for this entire feud, he took a back seat to acknowledge Roman Reigns as his tribal chief during this segment. It was something that didn't sit right with him, and it was definitely a teaser for what's to come in the future when the Bloodline implodes once again. Another important point is, he abused his power as a board member to inform Cody if he lost against Roman, he would never get another undisputed title match again. After the challenge was accepted, Rock took things to a personal level.
Title just like that.
Cody a mistake. After highlighting the age gap between him and his siblings, Cody responded by returning the slap he received a few weeks ago. This was probably one of the worst decisions of his life, because Rock didn't let this one go. He had an ass-kicking of a lifetime waiting for him in the near-distant future. The following week on SmackDown saw the return of
I was
Rock
there that
concert.
night.
He didn't take any prisoners, ripping Cody a new arsehole. Despite destroying the biggest babyface in the company, he got away with it, and the fans were loving it. Once he was done, he made things even more personal by involving Cody's mum, and here's where things get dark. He whipped out a bell and promised to beat him like a dog, and then hand it to her when it was soaked with her tears and Cody's blood. It was a chilling promo, and it elevated his character to become an absolute psychopath. It was exactly what the feud needed. It was something that seemed way too graphic, and we never thought we'd actually see it happen. But Rock was a man of his word.
It happened.
Interrupted Cody on
Raw tonight,
the most bizarre
I'm gonna make you bleed
way possible. They stood in the ring with not a single word exchanged until he put his arms around his back and whispered something. We didn't know what was said until later on. He told Cody tonight he was going to make him bleed, and then walked away. As the show went on, The Rock's actions were a topic of discussion, with everyone on edge. Both superstars didn't reveal what was said, and when Rollins told Jay something didn't feel right, we were all prepared for the shenanigans of the century. During the main event, Jey Uso was attacked by the Bloodline, with Cody rushing out to the ring to make the save. He followed Jimmy backstage and kicked his ass in the backstage area, not knowing the trap he put himself in. The Rock came from behind, and he was ready to deliver the ass-kicking of a lifetime. He beat the soul out of him, smacking his head off a table and bashing his brains out with a trash can. Conveniently, they ended up outside Rhodes' tour bus, and here's where things get messed up. The rain was pouring, and The Rock brutalized Cody with verbal and physical abuse, throwing him into his own bus, and for the first time in a long time, blood was shown.
Blood was back, baby.
The beating continued, and as promised, the Mama Rhodes belt came out, and The Rock collected his blood and painted the belt with it before beating the crap out of him. When the cameras went off the air, the beating continued, adding an additional layer of realism to the story. Rock reminded Mama Rhodes that the only thing missing was her tears on the belt. It's a new
he told him F that. He don't care nothing about the camera, no restrictions. He's gonna beat the hell out of Cody.
Way before the PG era, there were kids crying at home because they couldn't believe their hero was beaten senseless. There is no other heel in the business who can get this kind of reaction, blurring lines between fiction and reality.
old school heel
just when you
mentality
thought
too.
we'd see everything,
Back in
it
the 90s.
just kept getting better and better, and that's why he's one of the greatest of all time. On the final Raw before WrestleMania, The Rock made his way out to the ring to attack a vulnerable Seth Rollins, but he had a plan B, with Cody rushing out to the ring, and it seemed like we were going to see payback, but Roman Reigns made the save. This allowed the Bloodline to bring out an American Nightmare belt, and it was used to beat Seth and Cody lifeless. The Rock was untouchable, adding to the final boss character further. Going into WrestleMania, he showed no signs of weakness. Instead, he kept getting more and more powerful. One of the things that made this gimmick get over was the thought of him being unbeatable. He wasn't a regular performer, he is also an authority figure. This was expanded upon massively throughout the build. The stipulations for the match in both of the WrestleMania main events were determined by him. During the tag match, he was bending the referees to his will, and if they didn't, he threatened to fire them. He really got into character. We're talking about a guy who hit a referee with a weightlifting belt after the show went off the air. There was no better way it could have been booked.
That was funny, I ain't gonna lie.
The Rock has been something special. Despite being critiqued for his familiarity, he managed to overcome everything, reinventing himself as the final boss. After realizing he made a mistake was a massive call that deserves respect. Once again, he's giving back to the business. He stood aside to elevate Cena at WrestleMania 29 and now brought more eyes onto the business to appreciate the rise of Cody Rhodes. In the future, we're going to see him pass the torch to Roman. He might have been the main attraction during this entire feud, but in a weird way, despite taking center stage, it made Cody's win at WrestleMania that much sweeter. We thought we didn't need The Rock, but in my opinion, WrestleMania 40 wouldn't have hit as much as it did without him, and I'm glad this is only the beginning, with so much more.
I can't wait to see The Rock later on this year.
The final
what's to come in the future? I cannot wait, bro. I cannot wait at all.
Channel. And also, leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on The Rock's.
Alright, y'all, great video, man. Let me know down below in the comments of what y'all thought of my reaction to this video. Like, comment, subscribe. But till next time, I'm out. Peace.